Hey everybody, welcome to BagTalk, episode 9. Today James and I are going to be talking about the Christie's Paris auction that just ended and some other auctions that are coming up.
We're also going to be talking about the future markets and also the future of civilization. So hop in the bag ship and let's take off.
Um, yeah, I wanted to start out by saying how fun that last episode was with our friend
So much
Rachel.
fun.
She's so
So much
interesting.
fun.
She has so many great tips.
She's a fascinating bag person because, like we said last episode, she has so much knowledge that's so separate from our experience. And it was so fascinating hearing all of her tips and tricks, all of her insider knowledge about the Hermes stores and Hermes culture in general. It was fascinating.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting conversation. So if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to episode 8 with our guest Rachel. I thought that was a really, really exciting conversation. I learned a lot.
Yes, definitely worth your time.
Definitely. This week, we've got some other stuff to talk about, mostly auction related stuff because we're really in the thick of the season.
Yes,
Christie's
yes.
Paris auction is closing today as we record this, and I've been watching
Yes.
the results. Um, pretty pretty low for a lot of stuff, I would say. I mean, not crazy low, but I haven't been shocked by any of the results being that high, um,
Mm-hmm.
except for the So Blacks. There was a So Black Kelly 35 and a So Black Box Birkin 35, um,
Yes.
both leather, and last I checked, those were really, really high. Let me see what those sold for. I can pull that up right now.
There was one shocker for me, at least, which was the Gucci bamboo handle that went for 138 euro, 1,000 euros.
Yeah, well, those
It
three that
makes
they started the
total
auction
sense,
with,
but yeah.
they were made special for the auction by Gucci. And I think, those ultimately were kind of disappointing results for them because the one with the glass handle and the one with the diamond and gold handle
Definitely
each
below
just
the
sold for the
estimate.
opening bid. So at least they sold.
Mm-hmm. Which this was yeah, this was definitely an experimental group of lots, but I don't know. What is your impression, knowing a bit more about the auction world, about the dynamics behind
I
this
mean, I
price?
think
Just
this
not enough
sort of
bidders,
retail
or
production and auction doesn't really go well together in most senses. There was that instance
mm,
earlier this year when Sotheby's collaborated with Louis Vuitton to sell, and then like double collaborated with Nike to sell that special group of 200 sneakers that were made with this different monogram materials. And that was sort of like, it went so well.
yeah,
Every pair sold for over $100,000. Some went for over $300,000. That I think people thought, oh, this is something that we can do more of.
incredible.
But that auction was for charity. It was for Virgil's
Yeah.
charity. He had just passed. Like, all of the stars were aligned for that
Mm-hmm.
auction to have been as successful as it was. And that isn't necessarily replicable, as you see with Sotheby's when they collaborated with Louis Vuitton again
Right.
for the RD Capucines collection later that year. Or maybe this was a whole calendar year
Yeah.
after. Um, but those were,
Yeah.
they recreated a group of the RD Capucine bags, just one of ones that were each signed by the artist, and each had a custom round hat box shaped trunk with that was also signed by the artist. And I want to say a lot of them, the opening bids were like 15, 16,000 euros, or like 20,000 US all in. And a couple went for like 40, a couple went for like 30, a bunch went for like 20, the opening bid or one above, and then a handful didn't sell. And I was really surprised. There was one by Josh
Mm-hmm.
Smith, which is also
Yeah.
one of my favorite of the RD Capucines, but he was the only one who actually did a full artwork on the Hatbox trunk, like a classic Josh Smith palm trees sunset artwork. And that one didn't sell. I was shocked.
Mm,
I would have bought that if I was actually thinking ahead.
wow. Yeah. I wondered though if, because the RD Capucines, yes, they're unique, and obviously these were one of ones. I think there's just so many different kinds where that kind of lowers the value of all of them in a sense, because there's so many of those unique RD Capucines out there. I wonder if there's like a psychological effect because there's so many.
Right. I mean, at this point, they've probably produced 3 or 4 dozen variations.
That had an effect.
And I think they're limited to maybe 200 each produced. You know, just the regular production ones. No special trunk, no signature. Right.
Right. Plus the cult following of Virgil, and also
that really played into it.
Rare.
And so that was really the only place to get that sneaker. But another successful example of this is when Christie's years ago actually collaborated with Hermes to sell that set of 5 Pasquide bags that were specially produced to represent the different kingdoms of Great Britain.
Mm-hmm.
And those all did extremely well.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. We talked about all of those, I think, on episode 1 or 2.
Possibly. I mean, I love talking about those bags. They're so cool. I love a Pasquide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's when you Pasquide passed out.
Pasquide passed out, exactly. Because I saw one on the street. Yeah. Those were gorgeous. Mm. And I've never seen them come back on the market. I love it when people buy stuff and keep it.
Yes. Collectors hold on to it and then, 30 years later, bring it out in some grand auction, estate auction handbag.
Exactly.
That's to die for.
Yeah, I wonder if they were all bought by the same person.
That would be interesting. Not surprising, but interesting.
Yeah. So I have these So Black results. The Kelly 35 went for 30,240 euros. Which is strong for a 35. The 35's average about 20 at auction for 35 Kelly.
It's a pretty big one.
Yeah. The 35 Birkin went for 47,880 euros. So that's over 50K US. That's a really strong price for a So Black, especially a 35. It's like, what is this, 2019 again? Very exciting.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, but the Himas weren't terribly successful. They had an older 30 that achieved, 100 and change. And they had a new Kelly 28 that brought like 120 euros.
Yeah. 126 and then 120 respectively.
Yeah, so a little soft. Although that's actually a pretty strong price, I would say, for an older 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the older ones, yeah, definitely.
But we'll see, because Heritage actually just opened the bidding for their December auction, and they have an older 30, a really old 30 from 2008, the first year. And it's starting at 20,000. And I don't think there's a reserve above that, because it looks like they've posted their reserve. So we'll see what happens there. Very exciting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very exciting. That's so risky, and I love it.
Oh my gosh, where can I come up with 20,000?
Right.
Must bid.
It's not going to go for that.
Yeah.
This is going to be a dog pile.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to go at least, I'd be shocked if it went under 68.
Definitely.
Yeah. But if it goes for 70, if it goes for 72, I'll be like, okay, it's old, whatever.
Yeah.
It's beat. It's old and beat.
Okay. I was going to say, what's the condition on it?
Yeah, so that'll be so interesting. But what I was really surprised in this Christie's Paris auction is the stuff that didn't sell. Neither of the Kelly dolls sold. The Picnic Birkin didn't sell. I thought that was very interesting.
I understand the Picnic Birkin. I understand more than the Kelly dolls. That should be an easy sale. I'm really surprised at that.
Oh, yeah. And, those would have sold, at the opening bid, it would have been something like 45, maybe a little less, 45,000 US, all in with fees. I think the reserves were like 32,000 euro. So you do the math.
You could flip those so easy.
Could you though? I think we're getting to see a lot of the Picto Kelly dolls on the market right now, and pretty soon they're just going to trade for the same amount as regular Kelly dolls, 40.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Wow.
I predicted this right when they came out too.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's a pretty standard trajectory for new, exciting things. They eventually come back into the fold of just classics, and people lose interest and move on to whatever else.
right.
What did you think of the Shearling Kelly result?
What did it go for?
Refinding it. I just saw it. I passed it.
I want to guess it was like 36.5.
Close. 32,760.
Oh, nice. So like USD,
Euro.
that's like 35K. That is,
Yeah.
check the tape, exactly what I said Shearling Kelly 35s would be going for now that the minis are out.
Yes. You heard it here first.
I called it.
And it's a 2005 one. Pretty good condition, it looks like.
Oh, no, it looks like bad condition, if you ask me. I could see right through the fur
Really?
on that handle.
Fine. I'm way more forgiving on condition than I should be, which is why I'm not a buyer.
Well, teddies, you know. There's no old teddies that are in good condition.
Right. At least not at this point, unless they were really well taken care of, and I think a lot of them were just
Yeah.
worn out. Yeah, grade 3, so kind of right in the middle of the condition.
Yeah, I'm still so excited for the Christie's Hong Kong auction. That's coming up November 25th.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just going to be a real banger.
Yeah. There's so many exciting auctions for this holiday season. I'm really excited to see a lot of these results.
Yeah. I was looking at the Gross and Delatrez. They have a men's Hermes auction coming up, which was pretty interesting. I thought it was really well curated, and it sort of, did speak to the male collector a bit.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that one quite yet, so I'm going to look at that.
Yeah, it's really cool. And they threw in some, like, Loro Piana leather jackets and things like that to spice it up.
Solid.
Mm-hmm.
Love a good Loro Piana jacket.
Yeah,
Leather
a lot of Barenia.
Or whatever it is.
Oh, I know.
Oh, really? Barenia?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I guess that is kind of a masculine material. In a
Oh,
sense.
very.
Yeah.
Like a Barenia Sac de Peche, a Barenia Numea, a Barenia... You name it.
The Numea. That's such an I feel like an unappreciated Hermes bag.
Yes,
Not that
it's very unassuming.
But
it's quite
it is
nicely made. It's nicely proportioned. It's squishy. It's elegant. It's
got the
unassuming.
saddle motif, so it still ties
does.
into the equestrian nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's just for me. I'd rather have an Evelyn, and I know that's the worst thing in the world. So basic, but I don't know. The Numea, I can't get excited about it. I don't know why.
Yeah. Evelyns are so popular now. They're crazy popular.
I know. So popular.
They're hard to get.
They are. Even harder than when I was pestering my essay at Hermes Madison for my TPM that I wanted years ago. Could never get it. It was always, oh, we don't have any. Okay, I know you have some. Come on now. And did I ever tell you that story of when I went in once? I think it was either the first or second time I went in to get an Evelyn TPM. I didn't really care what color, but I was shooting for apricot at the time. So that's kind of the timeline, because I loved apricot. And I go in and I ask, and I had, I was kind of a scarf and small leather goods client of theirs at the time. And I went in, asked the SA, she went into the back and checked, came back and told me they don't have any. And I just went around my business, shopping around the store, looking at whatever's around. And then, lo and behold, this woman comes in with her little children, like 2 children, and she gets presented with 3 Evelyn TPMs right in front of my face. I was like, that's bold. At least wait until I'm gone. I don't know. They probably didn't care about me in that moment. However,
that's wild. My experience with that was like the complete opposite. I went into Madison Hermes, this is like 2015, 14, and was like, hey, I want to like I like buying bags. Like, you know, do you have any cool bags? And she was like, no. And I was like, well, I also really love Evelyn TPMs. Like, I would love another one. Not that I had one, but I pretended
It
that I
doesn't
did.
count as a bag.
Right, right. And she was like, oh, yeah, I got one of those right here. And she pulled one right out and sold it to me. And then later that week, she calls me and says, hey, I got a Kelly for you if you want to come in. So that was like the golden era.
Yeah. I've got to get better at playing the game. I'm just not. I'm
Well,
not
now
that girl to be persistent and like try to finagle it.
it's a lot of work. Yeah.
I know.
But I did the math. I did the girl math on this, right? And
Yes.
an Evelyn TPM is like an easier thing to score, right?
Yeah.
And if you're getting them in Europe, they cost $1,200, right? And they resell easily at like $3,800. So that's,
Okay.
you know, you do the girl math. $2,600 in profit, something like that. You could
that's
easily
insane.
swing like a long weekend in Paris for well under $2,600. So if you can snag an Evelyn TPM, you can pay for your whole vacation.
Or two.
If you can get two, even better.
If you can get two, yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's kind of crazy, and it still hasn't gone away. That one TPM, it's still here, like
it is
chugging
so cute.
underneath everything else. It's too
Yeah.
cute. I really, really, really want one. If I could have one bag from Hermes right now, I think it would be an Evelyn TPM, just to have.
Yeah, I would love a suede one. I've seen them doing suede.
Ooh, yes. And I wouldn't mind the wool and leather line trimmed ones. I can't remember what they call it.
Yeah.
Well, I know Futura, but Futura wool, but they have a name for those, and I'm totally blanking on it.
I think they're just called Futura Evelyn TPMs.
There you go.
I have a story about those.
Yes,
I managed to snag one of those on the Hermes website. And then later that week, my SA at Meatpacking called me in because he had the exact same Evelyn TPM for me.
And you were like, I'll take it.
I literally bought it. I was like, no, wait. Because when I buy online, I usually pick up in store just because I don't trust things to be delivered. And I went in to pick it up. And when I went in to pick it up, he was like, I got a bag for you as well. And it was the exact same bag that I was picking up. And then when he opened the bag that I was picking up, he was like, oh, this is the same bag I just offered you. Like, do you want another one? And I was like, actually, I love these, and I do. And I said I was going to give it to you as an excuse. I was like, I'll give this to my friend James.
Still haven't gotten that, Evelyn.
No.
Still have not gotten it. Christmas gift, maybe. I'm just kidding.
But yeah,
Good for you, though. That's how you do it.
Unlike, though, with the Madison experience, this guy then did offer me a Kelly as well. It was like an indigo Epsom Cellier Kelly 28 with palladium hardware.
Pretty.
And I was like, let me try this a little different. I turned it down saying I wanted something more special. And he never offered me anything again.
Boo.
So.
See, I feel like that's what happens at new Hermes stores. They like really, I don't know if it's because they're new employees or whatnot, but I feel like there's less luck in the new stores. Like, I don't know, at Madison, just hearing Rachel and you talk about Madison these days, it seems like there's more luck and more, I don't know, opportunity going on there, but I think the new stores are much more skittish, and so they'll cut you off easier.
Ooh, interesting.
Maybe. That's my that's a theory, it's not fact.
Interesting take. I like that.
Because
when they revamp a store, like they recently did in Chicago or like with the Madison Hermes, they really pump it full of merchandise for a bit.
Yeah.
And that's to attract new clients because they want to expand their base in like an existing location.
Right.
But yeah, there's interesting ways to time it.
Yeah. So you have not gone back to the meatpacking store then?
No, not to shop with that essay in particular. You know, I'll pop in from time to time just to see what's on display, maybe, you know, get a chapstick. But I don't shop there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
They're not franchised, right?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Speaking of franchise stores, though, did you hear about Manhasset?
No, what's happening?
Allegedly, I am hearing through the bag grapevine that they are no longer going to be franchised, and Hermes is actually going to be taking over the Manhasset store.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it will no
longer... So if you don't know, like...
Go ahead.
Tell our viewers, our listeners, about franchised Hermes boutiques and the history.
Yeah, well, I don't know the history, but the difference...
Broad strokes.
Yeah, the main differences between a franchise store and a regular Hermes store is mainly your purchase history doesn't apply at franchise stores. So they will not be able to see your purchase history at other Hermes locations. And your purchases don't count towards any sort of pre-spend. So whatever you buy...
But they also don't have to adhere to Hermes's selling limits, the corporate selling limits. So they can sell you whatever they want if they so choose.
Right. So
yeah, and these stores were a lot more prevalent in the 90s.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of them throughout Europe, and Hermes really did go on a kick of corporatizing these stores in the early 2000s, and there's very few franchised Hermes boutiques left. The one in Manhasset is
one of the last ones.
One of a very few, yeah. So that's fascinating that it might be absorbed.
Right?
I wonder if it has something to do with the franchise owner, maybe aging.
That's what I would imagine, but I would wonder why they wouldn't pass that to someone else and maintain the franchise status. But
I don't know if they can.
Again, right, Hermes might be saying, no, we're not going to, you're going to be sunset, and then we're going to take the store back.
Yeah, interesting.
So that could definitely be the case. I could see that. That's probably the most likely. But yeah, I heard that through the grapevine, and I was like, wow, another piece of history, domino falls.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll be having, like, a sale or something.
Could you imagine a clearance?
Oh.
Everything must go. 50% off all Birkins. No, I'm just kidding.
Amazing. Yeah. I wish I could go to Christie's for this auction in Hong Kong. I was thinking, and there's just like, so many good bags. Like, if I had the ability to just acquire bags that I liked, and I could get like 5 from this auction, I could just like, what an unboxing that would be. Getting a Grisson Kelly 25, and a Berenia Alligator Kelly 32, and a Vanilla Alligator Cellier Touch Kelly 28.
You might not survive that.
Those would be the 3.
So you may not want to do that for your own health.
Yeah.
You may not survive.
The unboxing ends with my death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. See, Max, I know you've always seen yourself as an artist. That is the ultimate performance art act. That is like how you should
I mean,
go
it would be more of an ascension, I think. At that point.
Amazing.
An ecstatic ascension.
Yes. Yes. An ascension. Max just lifts and we never see him again. Disappears into the sky.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. Amazing.
Some people can do that, and at the end of the day, they go home with just a handful of the most incredible bags you can think of.
I was like, I'm pretty sure only one person has ever ascended. That's what I thought you were talking about.
Yeah. No, not that. People can ascend. Yeah, no.
I was like, what the hell is he talking about?
Yeah,
Makes
sometimes
total
that
sense
happens.
now. Go to class, ascension class, and rise above.
Yeah. No. Yeah, people.
Like,
all I meant was that sometimes people buy lots of bags. Too funny.
Was there anything else?
Yeah, I'm very excited.
The Gross and Delatrez auction that piqued your interest, other than the Berenia and like the men's vibe?
I mean, there was nothing specifically like, oh my gosh, I've never seen that before.
Just cool.
There was a what was the coolest thing in that auction? I would say probably the Berenia shark bolide. That's very cool.
Oh wow, very cool. Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
love that.
But it's like one time, many years ago at Art Curial, they had this 40 centimeter Birkin with this canvas panel that was like, had geometric patterns on it. And like, oh, what a perfect men's bag. It was all like black and gray and brown.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, it can be hard to find things that aren't Curial sold. Everything's in French. I never know how to search for it, but it existed. Trust me.
How have we never learned French in our entire careers, high school careers to now? How have we
I did
never
a little
learned
French in
Oh, did you?
middle school. So very early. Yeah, maybe I did 2 years.
That's
Yeah,
before
that
I
was
knew
back
you, so that
before
doesn't count.
my
Just kidding.
family even moved to Virginia, back in Massachusetts. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Nice. I only took Spanish from middle school through 11th grade, and then I took Japanese.
Interesting. Yeah, I did the French, and then that school I was at started offering Chinese. And so I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I want to try that. So I did Chinese for a year.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Virginia, and I started taking Spanish.
Did you like Chinese?
It was interesting enough, but I only took it for a year, so I really didn't, like, nothing really caught on. I remember
Right.
how to say one
Basics.
sentence. Yeah.
Oh, God. Do it.
你中文说得很好. That means you speak
Translation.
Chinese very well.
Oh, you're just going to say that to every Chinese person?
Yeah.
You speak Chinese very well.
Oh, yeah.
The only Chinese I know is 我很好 and 我不好. That's it. Which I think is I love you and I hate you. I think.
Oh, nice.
Don't cancel me, Chinese listeners. But anyway, when I took Japanese, I wish I took Chinese first because Japanese was so frustrating to learn because they have 3 different alphabet systems. They're not really alphabets, but because they have the Chinese writing system called whatever it
Kanji?
is that kanji? Or
I don't know.
Yes, kanji.
Okay.
And then they have hiragana, which is like mainly what they use for foreign languages that have to be translated. And then they have hiragana, which is like the traditional Japanese like swirly letters, characters.
Interesting.
So frustrating.
I can imagine.
So frustrating. So I wish I did Chinese first. I don't know how we got on this language tangent, but
Yeah, Spanish was fun. I did a little exchange program in Cadiz, Spain. That was fun.
Cadiz? Yeah,
Cadiz,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I got your
Mhm.
Castellano accent.
And then I took German in high school
Yeah.
and college.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I'm trying to learn Italian.
Excellent. You're
Yeah.
going to be multilingual, barely.
Oh, yeah. On my resume, I put elementary German.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think I put intermediate Spanish on mine. Because I was pretty conversational in Spanish. Don't ask me to speak conversational Spanish now, but I can understand it still, which is fascinating to me because I'm like, how do I understand this? I couldn't respond to them, but I could pick up on what they're saying. It's very interesting.
I get that. You could sort of, make out a sign or a menu.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Those are even easier than hearing Spanish speakers because I learned a version of Latin American Spanish first because my teacher was Colombian. And then when I went to high school, I was learning Castilian Spain Spanish, which was a mind F for me because it is quite different and more proper. And there's more like things to, and the accent, it was a little hard to get used to, the Ibiza accent. Lisping.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I feel like I learned a couple different Spanishes throughout my life.
Interesting. Yeah, I hope to get good at Italian since we hope to move there.
Yeah, how is that going? Do you find
Oh.
Italian easier, the same, or harder than the other languages you've tried to learn?
I think it's pretty similar, and not similar to, but similar as far as learning to German, where there's a lot of just like, at least in terms of the words, they translate pretty easily in my mind. Maybe that's because I've got some elementary Spanish.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sentence structure is quite different. It's almost just like, it feels very stunted and truncated, and you're just sort of like spitting out words.
Yeah.
But
There's something more blunt about how Italians speak, because Spanish is very
Right. Well, it's
suave.
blunt about like the sentence structure and how it's
Yes,
all arranged to communicate, but the actual language is very like
beautiful.
mouthy, and you have to really work it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to say
Gotta
it's
hit
clumsy,
those
but it's not. That's
consonants.
not exactly the right word for it. It's not clumsy, but it's whatever. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
love
almost
listening
it's
to
almost
talk.
like too formal in some sense, like
Yeah, exactly. And I think
in
that
the
has
way that
that.
everything's put together and like
Yeah, I think it has that
I
in
don't know.
common with German. I think that's
Sure.
maybe one of the similarities is that like somewhat formality of the syllables.
Right. Totally.
And
Yeah.
another language, last one, is I learned Dutch,
Oh, Dutch.
which is so much fun to speak.
Yeah.
It is one of my favorite languages that I've tried to learn is Dutch. One
How'd you go about learning it?
Duolingo, and then I listened to a lot of Dutch TV and radio,
Oh, nice.
which is it's just such a fun language because, well, first of all, it's so similar to English. It's I think the closest living relative to English in language wise, closer than Irish or Scottish, which is fascinating to me. But it's just so fun because it's like German, but much softer and more like you were doing Swedish Chef. Like
Totally.
The only thing, I remember a bunch of it, but I just remember "good day" being "Hulde" is good. So it's a lot of like that German-ish thing, but it's a much more like I don't know. I always think of like those Dutch milkmaids and like a windmill when I'm speaking Dutch because it's so stereotypical sounding. But I think it's a really cool language. I think easier
Oh,
than
very
German.
nice. Yeah.
It also only has 2 genders instead of 3.
Oh,
So
how
that's a whole other thing.
Don't you know there's infinite genders?
I mean language gender.
Yeah.
Because German has 3. And that was always really hard for me as someone who learned Spanish first.
Yeah. And everything's gendered in those languages.
Exactly. Those romance languages, they really know how to get the gender.
Canceled.
Canceled.
Yeah. But it would be really nice to know Japanese for this market. I think the Japanese market's fascinating, and we don't really have access to it as Westerners. Not in the same way that other people do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, though, with Japanese, and it's kind of similar, because I also learned Danish and Swedish and Norwegian kind of all at the same time. I say learned, like I actually know these languages, tried to learn. That's more accurate. However, studied for a time. But what I found with Japanese and also Hindi is kind of similar, is so many people already speak English, where it's like not really that useful, except to your point about it's hard to access the market if you aren't native Japanese speaking, or right. Even well spoken in Japanese.
So if you look at Hermes and their sales reports and like how much they sell, where they sell it around the world, Japan is as big a market as Europe for them. And if you look at the number of Hermes boutiques, there's an equal number in Japan as there are in all of Europe.
Yeah.
So it's actually like a huge market.
I mean,
and it's a really well-established market.
Yes,
it's been around for decades, and there's like government protocols for authentication and stuff, and it's all very above board and very regulated.
Yeah. I do
and the Japanese women buy and sell bags at a much higher rate than anyone else. Like, it's very common for them to buy a bag, use it a few times, sell it by another. Like, there's just a much higher level of rotation there, I think.
I think it's the resale culture. I think they unlike what was the case in China maybe a decade ago, maybe not even that, there was a big stigma about used items, resold items. But in Japan, they didn't have that stigma, so they really were able to launch into that in full force, for sure. But also Japan
but
is
it's never really... Oh, yeah, there's a huge population, of course. And it's a pretty wealthy population.
Yes, that too. But it's also geographically pretty large, so I'm not surprised that there's many Hermes stores in the major cities all across the islands.
Yeah, definitely. But like, it's never really crossed over into the Western markets.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember back in the day, like on eBay, you know, the vibe in America, at least, was that if something's coming from anywhere in Asia, there's a high probability that it's fake. But that was never true for Japan.
Never.
And that was sort of a little specific piece of information that never quite sunk in the West.
Yeah, actually quite the
And
opposite.
I think that really hurt the crossover
Yeah.
between the two markets over the years.
Yeah, definitely. I actually have heard from several sources that Vietnam is actually becoming kind of a hot market for handbags. Not so much the high end, but as they're kind of post-industrializing and all of that economic stuff, they're really pouring more money into what we would consider more accessible luxury, like Louis Vuitton monogram stuff and vintage specifically, but still newer stuff too. So they're starting to kind of come online, as it were, which is fascinating to me because who would have expected Vietnam of all countries?
Yeah.
But it's actually kind of booming, and there's lots of resale companies opening up over there, which is fascinating.
Interesting.
With Singapore right there.
I was talking with someone. Oh, well, Singapore, yeah. Singapore, Malaysia, obviously. Yeah. But I was talking with someone who knows a lot about the market in Japan, and she was saying that, you know, in recent years, it has begun to shift. There's a lot more of a sort of a shopping tourism trade there. People who go to Japan to buy pre-owned, you know, in a similar way that people go to Paris to buy Hermes, they go to Japan to buy vintage.
Wow.
And so we've seen like an increase in more specialized, curated vintage shops in Japan that are trying to cater to the West, like Ginza Xiaoma or Amore Vintage.
Yeah. Oh, I love Amore Vintage.
Oh yeah. Well, I love Xiaoma.
Yeah. Well, of course,
goodness.
That's obvious. Everyone loves that.
Queen.
Literally. Queen. Yeah. I like the Japanese market a lot. Always have. It's so fascinating.
Because they're like business to business only businesses and auctions there that are only open to you know, Japanese businesses where they auction bags off like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And some of the bags that go through there, I mean, I just catch glimpses of things through other people's because I have no access to this world. And it's, you know, if some of these bags appeared at auction in the West, it would be like, you know.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I find really interesting, and there's definitely a lot of opportunity in cross-country, cross-continental bag trading, buying and selling, because the markets are
there's
so
a lot of
different.
arbitrage opportunity there in terms of international markets still.
Yeah, it's kind of like there's two companies that come to mind are Marquis Luxury and Le Prix Wholesale in the US, kind of in that space, but it'll be interesting to see if that grows here similarly to Japan. I expect not, but who knows?
Yeah, interesting. You know, on a very, you know, obvious level to illustrate this point, like 35s sell much better in the US than they do in Asia.
Yeah.
There's, you know.
Back to Vietnam, that's the same phenomenon happening there. The Hermes Birkins and Kellys just don't sell as well. So a lot of them are coming to the US, or they're going to China, mainly those two places, honestly.
Yeah. I remember a line from Downton Abbey, and somebody said, you know, talking to old lady Violet, whatever you want to call her, the dowager, and saying, you know, oh, we have to move forward into the future. We can't just all sit around on our chaise longue. She goes, I'll take the chaise longue.
My favorite, and this is so stupid, but my favorite line in that entire series of hers, and there's better ones, I know that, okay? So don't come for me. It's just my favorite now, maybe, is, what is a weekend? Because it's just
classic,
so,
iconic.
Like,
yeah.
I feel that way now. because I run,
Yeah.
running two businesses and just my whole life is working, except for like
Oh, I feel
it's
you.
either my art, bag world, or open luxury. I'm either doing one of those three every single day.
Hmm. Well, I saw two Kellys in the uh, heritage auction that's coming up that I've never seen before. We were talking about Vert
Let's
fonts, right?
look.
One of them was a
Yes.
Vert olive, and I think this is correct. They're cataloging Vert olive box, Cellier Kelly 32, with palladium guilloche hardware.
Oh my gosh. Hold on. Loading. Must see. Must see.
Right, from 2003. Amazing. And
Wait, I don't see it yet. Hold on.
well, I'll just give our listeners a little background information on why this is
Yes,
special.
yes, yes. Oh,
Guilloche is the rarest hardware there is. They made it twice in like 2001 to 2003, that era, and then again in like 2010 to 2012, that time period. And it's like got a little diamond pattern etched into it. Now the first edition, the early 2000s ones, when they were doing those, they did them in both palladium and gold. Later on, they only did it in palladium. But another difference is that in the early guilloches, there's actually a little plaque on the front that says Hermes, and then the later ones there isn't. It's just flat diamonds.
Yeah.
Well, diamond,
Yeah.
shapes.
Yeah.
But I have never seen one in olive box before. And the first
Yeah,
ones
that's
were
incredible.
box, and then later they were done in Tadillac. So there's all your information about guilloche. But I've never seen the
Yeah,
olive.
I love
Like,
Taliban.
what a dream.
Yeah, that's very unique. Although I do have to say, their olive and Cadillac is amazing. I feel like
Oh,
that
yeah.
combo, box too, but
Yeah.
Cadillac is a little bit different than box, obviously.
Hmm. Like those gillies
Without the
in the olive
gillies.
Tadillac's really nice.
I even love the ruby versions of those.
Yeah. Because it's like
colors.
the design is taken from like a men's dress shoe. It really works in the smooth leather.
Yeah, that brogue trim
Yeah.
is amazing.
The other Kelly I'd never seen before in this heritage auction is a 20 centimeter, and like I've seen something like this before. Maybe at a different trim. Maybe I've seen this thing before, but like I haven't seen it at auction ever. I saw like maybe a picture of it somewhere. It's a Kelly 20 from 1996 with parchment box trim and crinoline body. A crinoline Kelly 20. Wow.
Delicious.
It's so creamy. That's so nice. Crinoline is made from woven horsehair.
It's such a beautiful material and so strong.
Mm-hmm. It's, yeah. I mean, if it breaks, that sucks, but it's pretty strong. Yeah.
Cannot be replaced, I don't believe anymore.
No.
Because they faded it out.
Yeah, they did some constances in crinoline not too long ago. Remember they were like blue or red.
Yeah, red and blue. And black?
Maybe black, yeah. And they used crinoline paneling in the center of the second edition of the Club Birkins.
Yes.
Love
I love
those. Love those. Crinoline and
That's one of my
Berenia
favorite
with
uses of
Fjord.
it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
To die for.
Oh my gosh.
Another material that's in this auction that is pretty unique is the quote-unquote tapetage Birkin.
Yeah, yeah.
I really want to see how that goes.
Oh yeah.
For
It's a 30 too, which is cool.
Yeah, good
The
size.
first 25 is coming up in the Christie's Hong Kong auction. That's the first one that's coming up.
Mhm.
And then this is the second, so that will be interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Because there haven't been too many of those.
No, it's the first time they're at auction, yeah.
No, I know, like
Oh, anywhere.
there's only
Right,
two this
gotcha.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that I recently discovered and read a little about and then had some questions about was this material called shell cordovan. It's a leather. And it's essentially like the nicest leather, the most expensive leather that there is. But I've never seen Hermes use it. And I was like, what's up with this? And I think I figured out why. Shell
Okay.
cordovan comes from the rump of a horse. It's a horse leather. And because Hermes
Oh,
is a
okay.
equestrian company, maybe they don't use horse leather.
Well, they had troika, but that.
Oh, interesting. Because I was thinking crinoline, but then I'm like, you can get horsehair without killing a horse, I imagine.
Yes, you
Yeah.
can. Although, I isn't troika is not horse though; it's calf hair, pony hair is what
Calf,
the
right.
industry
Yes,
term
it is still from a cow, I think.
But it's
Yeah.
calf hair, but they call it pony hair just as
Yeah.
the term.
So maybe that is why. Maybe that's why you never see Shell cordovan Hermes.
Yeah, because shell de cordovan, it would be horse skin.
Mm-hmm.
Like the horse did have to die for that.
Right.
But really cool. I love those very rare. I don't know if it would be considered an exotic skin, but I love the rare, unusual exotics that Hermes has used over the years. It's like a special interest of mine. I'm slowly building up a collection.
Mm-hmm. Even like rare leathers, like they use deer skin servo leather, in things like hats, gloves, coats. But I have actually seen a trim bag that was done in servo.
Really?
So who knows what else?
Oh, fascinating.
In one of these Japanese catalogs.
Not Nubuk. What's the it's like deer. It's got that big white.
Oh, Springbok.
Springbok. Thank you.
I
Have they
did
ever
see
used-
a collector from Malaysia with a Springbok Birkin, but this collector is known to have some inauthentic bags in her collection and some authentic bags. She's a real, mix and match kind of gal. So there's some questionableness about it, and I've never seen another. But I wouldn't put it past them because there's sort of a safari theme. Like they've done Birkins with, different safari print pony hairs, and they've made things for people who have brought in skins from hunts, elephants, other things like that. So it's totally possible.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah. Like I feel like I've definitely seen a Springbok Pullman.
Okay. Yeah, it's always fascinating when they do materials that are so unusual because it's so kind of impossible to find out unless you keep looking over a long period of time and do as much digging as you can.
Yeah, because Christie's in Paris recently had this vintage Kelly where the front panel, maybe also the back panel, were made from like a antique needlepoint carpet that someone had them make into a Kelly, and it was from the 60s.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're always from the 60s and 70s, these very unique skins and materials.
They were willing to go for it.
Yeah, at that time. Yeah.
I saw a couple of cool bags on the gram this week. I saw, I think the first example I've seen of the Hack Kazak, which has the 4. It's got like a quadrant situation.
Yeah.
And a sort of checkerboard of colors. I also saw somebody, reference that they had one of the new custom feather Kelly pochettes, which I've seen some like really interesting pictures that show interesting things that I don't quite understand yet. So I would love to learn more about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know anybody who has one?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You can always ask them to feel it.
But this is like from a new this is from like a new group that they I think had like new orders, different types. Like I saw one picture of something where I was like, what? I was like shocked.
Those are some of my most favorite moments when I see bags is when I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And not in a surprised way like I just did, but in exactly the way that you just did.
Oh, yeah.
Of like, what the hell am I even looking at?
Well, I thought
it's
that...
disorienting in the best way.
Well, I thought that when I saw that fringe Kelly dance in... in the
So
Christie's
cool.
auction. That thing is
So
so
freaking
nuts.
cool.
I'm excited to see what that goes for.
Yeah. So cool.
Wow. That's really
And
wild.
it's different than all of the other fringe that I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
where it's just the like flat panel of, the fringe Birkins that they were doing.
Yeah, this isn't like the trim the dance anate that we saw, on the runway in Fashion Week. Like the fringe comes up and weaves into the body of the bag. It's so cool.
So cool. It kind of reminds me of the Tressage Birkin, but in a much cooler. Like where the woven thing.
I'd forgotten about the Tressage on purpose. Yeah.
Everybody has. It was forgotten almost instantly. I really was surprised because I liked it. Just because it's kind of Argyle, kind of. And I liked the craft of it, but it was so brushed under the rug almost immediately. Yeah. So I feel like I'll never get one just because nobody cares about it. And you will pay too much for it. And
not today.
Because it's not desirable.
I don't like it because I feel like you'd get like dust and stuff in the where the weave goes through. I feel like you're gonna get dust in there.
Yeah, but you just need one of those air cans.
Yeah, great, sure.
The frozen whatever it's nitrous or not nitrous.
The
nitrogen.
The little keyboard cleaners.
The cold stuff. Yeah. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. I don't know why I'm explaining this to everyone. Anything else from the gram? Because I honestly have had a really slow week on the gram in terms of bags. At least I can't remember any on the top of my head that I've seen.
Well, our gram has had a great week. We hit over 1,000 followers. Yay!
Yes, I was just about to say!
So exciting.
Thank you to all of our subscribers and followers on all of our different platforms, because that is so exciting to us and so encouraging.
We love you. All. That was very exciting.
So we're glad that everybody loves this as much as we love putting it on. So, very exciting. The other thing I was going to say, though, is thank goodness for the Birkin Junkie, because he gives me good enough doses where I'm like, okay, even though it was a slow week or I wasn't served any cool bags, I can at least see cool things. Speaking of, he had I think it was white, Shadow Kelly cut. There's one in the Heritage Auction as well.
It's not going to sell. Reserve's too high.
Yeah. But I just thought it was really cool because you don't see those too often.
Well, I think you see those everywhere and they sell for like $10,000. They're not worth anything.
You think you see them everywhere? Is that just you being jaded,
I do, because when they first came out like a few months ago, people were like 25, 22, 28, just going nuts. And I recently saw one pop up on Fashion File, Store Fresh for $10,500. And yeah, it sold, but like that's what they think they're worth because that's what they go for at auction. That's the only price they sell at. If you list them at 16, 17, 14, they just sit there. They retail for $7, and they're just not, it's not a Birkin, it's not a Kelly. You're not going to make that much on it.
No, just as again, an object of history. And I've always kind of liked the Shadow.
I'd want an original, frankly. I'd want one of the first editions.
Absolutely. Definitely. That would be probably the only one I would buy, would be the first editions.
It's interesting that those don't go up in value beyond what the new ones are going for. And they might in time.
Maybe.
10 years from now, people might be like, you really got to get that 2009 Shadow cut.
Yeah. See, so what's happening at a macro trend forecasting kind of level, from what I understand, is that millennial cringe era of the mid-aughts is slowly coming back. I've been seeing some terrible, terrible things in retail stores that are giving me flashbacks.
Yes, Chico's, Cavalli.
Oh, God. Don't go to a mall. Not that any of our listeners would ever be caught dead in a mall. But
jeans and a cute top.
Going out tops, I know that's a little bit earlier than the mid-2000s, but statement necklaces, God believe this. Those will not, I swear, I will make it my personal vendetta to have those owl necklaces, that whole era, erase it. Erase it. It's only good for nostalgia, and it stays as nostalgia. It'll never be real. I'll never let it happen.
It's good times, good times.
No, literally not. Just kidding. It was good times, but let's not relive it.
Well, I feel like society's in this trapped situation of cycling and recycling, and it's all gonna bubble up, and something new is gonna happen at some point. It has to.
You know what it is, Max, and I'm gonna put on my academic hat right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because we've kind of run out of steam with postmodernism and deconstruction, because that was the whole ethos of art and fashion and everything to do with that for so long, at least since the late 80s and 90s, early 90s. That's kind of when it really kicked off. But we've been on that postmodern track for what now, 30 going on 40 years. So that's being totally exhaustive. We're running out of ideas, running out. We're
ready for the next thing.
Whatever that is.
What is it?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think Gen Z is going to take us in that direction, but I think also Gen Alpha, whatever they're calling the generation after them, is really going to be showing us what the future holds. And I am curious what your thoughts are where we might go. Let's do a little trend forecasting, cultural forecasting right now. Because I think it'll go in the way of transhumanism. I think that is the next step.
What's that?
Well, what I mean by transhumanism is in the philosophical term of humans transcending their physical limitations through technology, through
meta.
Not meta. No, beyond meta. So thinking no longer being Homo sapiens, but we will be Homo technologica or something else. A new species that is beyond our physical bounds.
I think the opposite's going to happen. I think we're going to snap back to a more physical reality.
I think we're going back to the medieval era.
Something where there's set rules. Like, as you can see, culturally, cultural media, social media, right? It's all becoming like, there's becoming one answer. What's the bag? What are the jeans? What's the way to live? What should your house look like? How should you entertain people? We're going back to Etiquette by Emily Post. We're going back to Victorian era rules. How can you talk to this person? What can you say to this person? How can you say it? In what circumstances can you say it? What does that mean? What do your glances mean? Like, everything is going to be hyper watched and controlled, and there's going to be distinct rules for how everyone should act and live. I think that's going to be the next thing. What those rules are, maybe we don't know yet.
That's a fascinating take, because I hadn't considered that, but you're kind of right. At least with Gen Z, the younger millennials, I can definitely see the rumblings of that conformity. That definitely was part of the Victorian era for sure. So that's interesting. I hadn't really considered that. Maybe.
And Versailles, it sort of happens cyclically going back.
Right. Yeah.
You have rules and then breakdown. Rules and then breakdown.
Yeah. I watched this really interesting lecture a couple weeks ago, and nobody's going to care about this, but like the United States in particular, we have like 80-year cycles where we have 4 distinct generations that kind of repeat themselves in these 80-year cycles. So it was kind of interesting because that's kind of along the lines of what you're kind of saying. Because it is cyclical, for sure. Mm-hmm. What I'm curious about then is, before the Victorian era, was there a similar deconstruction era?
French Revolution, Industrial Revolution.
Max, you're blowing my mind. That's so true. The Revolutionary era was right before that. You're giving me too much to think about.
It's going to happen.
Although I wonder, because I definitely see that transhumanist trek with everyone, you know, going to space, and like we're finally technologically getting to a space with AI and with everything where it's becoming easier and easier to meld ourselves with machine in different ways that weren't expected before. I wonder if it'll be the transhumanist Victorian era. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think the whole like machine age thing is going to have some sort of backlash, and it's going to make the real stuff so much more desirable, and people are going to be like, oh, a book. I love this book.
I don't think so, only because there's so much top-down happening in that space. Like, if the United States doesn't do it, China will do it, or Russia will do it.
And I heard someone make this interesting point, too, about things like the metaverse, and how people like us, we would never
we're too old for
do anything in the metaverse. But you know who does do stuff in the metaverse because they're forced to by the government, which is owned by corporations? Students, the youth. They grow up educated in the metaverse,
which is insane.
They'll know all about it. See, that's all they'll know, and that's how it's going to become a normal thing.
Exactly. That's, you know,
none of us might ever use it. We might think it's a joke, but they can force your kids to use it in school.
And then when they get to the workplace, they'll use it at work, and it'll just be another iteration of, you know, personal computing. Like, that was our era, not to age ourselves, but that becoming like a normal thing to have internet in your house, whether it be dial-up or broadband or whatever. I don't know. I can see the technology from the top-down perspective colliding with the conformity, where we can encode those rules and societal norms and etiquettes within whatever advanced technology we come up with. So I don't see a total backlash. I can see the backlash from the older generations and the people who obviously are a little resistant to it. I mean, I'm one of those people for sure. But I also see the corporate top-down nature, the governmental top-down nature, and also educating the youth kind of negating the backlash. Like, there might be a backlash, but I think the backlash will be steamrolled by progress, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah.
And I hate progress.
Don't we all?
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting that you said, I'm going to think about the Victorian thing, but now that I'm thinking about it a little more, I think there's like a single vision here being mushed together, and we'll see how it goes.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Oh, I was going to ask, how do you think that's going to affect bag world? So maybe the end on...
If there's rules, that's great. Right. Because it'll be like, this is the bag you have to have. If you have that bag, you're out. Will
they come out with Birkins that like talk to you and like cater to your emotional needs as a woman?
Well, I mean, the obvious like tech aspect of the future of bags is, you know, authentication related stuff.
Yeah, but that's boring. That's obvious.
Whatever.
Yeah,
who cares?
That's obvious.
Yeah, I just feel like technology increases and outpaces itself so regularly that totally negates the whole idea of Hermes lasting for generations. Because no technology lasts for generations.
Right. Very true.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can find more on bagworld.substack.com.
And you can find even more on our Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So like, comment, follow, and share to all of your bag babes. Bye!
Bye!